Today, we are breaking down Jordan Reid's brand new 2026 NFL mock draft. Let's get right into this. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is based on all 22 grades. Players with a plus, John Mateer, are not the current grade, is a pre-injury grade because I am no doctor. I also want to grade players when they're healthy because they're going to probably go to the NFL healthy. So keep that in mind. If you want to see about 290 of these players, feel free to go join the Patreon. It's a full breakdown of these guys, as well as the succinct version on this board, as well as every single rookie who plays in the NFL. I break down every single guy who takes a snap, as well as going over and seeing the stock reports of guys who perform very well and very poorly weekly. I end up compiling it on an even longer list than on the show. So lots of that and more. We built a great community over there. Starting out with the number one pick. Shout out to Jordan Reid, by the way. Great guy. I've had the pleasure of talking with him outside of all of this. So, maybe one day friend of the show. We'll see. It's very hard to get these ESPN guys on, but number one pick, New York Jets go Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. At this point, he does feel like the number one quarterback to me. Again, adjusting for how John Mateer played yesterday, which I don't want to overcompensate for that. Mendoza is the clear one. So right now, based on my grading, he also is my number one. So you guys might see at number two, there's a player who was there like literally yesterday, technically an hour ago, that is not there. I've updated LaNorris Sellers. A lot of these quarterbacks I've gone through and updated as well. If you guys are part of the Patreon, you guys can go into the quarterback tab and end up seeing that. So go and check that out. Not every single quarterback's updated, but the ones that kind of matter do. But regardless, Fernando Mendoza, the selection there at one, definitely not a guaranteed win right now. Back-to-back games with some sloppy play. Ended up pulling it out in both of them, and the resilience is honestly an asset, but the mistakes are very scary and very replicable in the NFL. It's not fluke mistakes. So we're trying to see if Mendoza can get past that. He was my quarterback 3 coming into the year. And, again, if John Mateer continues what he's done recently, then Fernando Mendoza will be my clear 1. But again, I'm not very confident in this class after, what we've seen, the development or lack of. At number 2, the Ravens go Rueben Bain Jr. I ended up realizing I didn't give him enough credit for the dominance that he's had, so I have boosted him up. To me, my only concern with Rueben Bain, well, technically there's 2. He's a good, not great athlete in terms of speed and explosiveness. Still very good. He's a large player. It happens. Not everybody can be Myles Garrett, but the biggest thing for me is the arm length. He definitely does not have like 33 plus inch arms. If he has 33, I'll be super happy, but I do think it's around that 32 inch range because he does have some trouble versus certain length. But I do think that his game has been fantastic. He was my edge 1 coming into the year, and then Malachi Lawrence stole my heart. Just a crazy anomaly player, but regardless, Rueben Bain is absolutely as advertised. My only concern when a player is not the top-end athlete that I think they kind of should be, especially in terms of endurance, the NFL is very fast-paced. So even if you have success in college, I do think the success would drop in the NFL. So he's doing a great job in college. I think he's going to do a very good job in the NFL. If he gets into top-tier shape and improves the explosiveness, I think we might be talking about the best edge rusher in the NFL. So, it is on that potential level. We'll see if it gets there. But, Rueben Bain, if you're going to take the risk, you're going to take the risk that this guy is just a top 20 edge in the NFL versus, a top 2. And I think that's a good bet to make at number 2 overall for a team that needs it in the Ravens. Again, this is, I assume, based on current draft order with reverse standings. So, yeah, Ravens are a tough team to talk about right now. But at number 3 overall, we have the Cleveland Browns going Dante Moore, Mel Kiper's number 1 player. Broshmo ended up breaking down the big board. I didn't feel like you guys would want to see a repeat because I know that we have a lot of people who are in both camps. So shout out to Broshmo, shout out to y'all who are supporting both of us. But Dante Moore, he is his number 1 player. To me, I still have him. So Mendoza right now, I've taken out a couple guys that I wanted to drop that I just don't have tape, and it's kind of misconstruing how people perceive the way I grade because, to be fair, I missed out on them in the preseason for various reasons. And I know you guys liked this video I did last year. I will end up probably in a couple weeks coming out with like certain guys I missed and why. So we're talking about, I mean, Lyndon Cooper, I don't think he's been a miss so far. He's actually been really solid. I just need to get the all 22 on him, and I just don't think he'll grade out to be as high of a grade as he was. But when talking about guys like Tomas Remak, like there's definitely some things I really want to discuss there because I had a lot of faith in him coming into the year, and some things just did not work out as he transitioned over to Virginia Tech. But we'll see about it. Regardless, Dante Moore, he's lurking somewhere in this top group. Where the hell did he go? He's somewhere in here. I can't find him off the top of my head, but there he is, number 36 on my board. Still, for a quarterback, guys, I don't bullshit. Like, I don't value quarterback all that much because if you don't end up hitting, you are the least valuable player on a roster unless an injury happens. Just going to put it out there. So I do like to boost value quarterbacks. I do a notable amount, but some people overinflate it. I think Dante Moore needs a lot more progression. I think he'd benefit from staying an extra year. But at the same time, if teams want to take a quarterback at the top, don't pull Drew Aller, where he probably could have ended up going really high and end up coming back to school and ending up, ruining your draft stock, so to speak. But Dante Moore, the selection there for the Browns, ended up being born, I believe, in Eastside Cleveland. And so it's kind of cool to see him go home for a team that, still will be looking for a signal caller if they are at the number 3 spot when all is said and done. At number 4, the Titans go Keldrick Falk, edge rusher out of Auburn. Super high floor. To me, he's about like a top 40 player for me. And again, that sounds crazy, I know, but this does factor in all these positions, all these players. And I'm not saying that he should go in the 40s. I'm saying that, if you adjust it for the consensus versus where I have them and you have a hybrid consensus board, Keldrick's probably around 20. So this is a perfectly understandable range. I just have some guys that I'm a super huge fan of. And Keldrick Falk is a high floor edge rusher. The Titans need some consistency there. If that happens, I'm not going to shame it. We'll have to see how the defense ends up shaping up, the system they want to run. But Keldrick's a very good player. I just think that, pound for pound, does leave some things to be desired for a top 5 pick. Dolphins go Caleb Downs, defensive back out of the Ohio State University. Certainly a good debate here on whether you should go a quarterback or not if you're sitting there at 5. But it's the age-old tale. Do you go like after the quarterback and build the team around him, or do you build the team and then drop a quarterback in? And it's a tough one. It's not an A or a B because the biggest volatility there is how good your quarterback going to be. Now, you have to have the right coaching in place, but I think the most important thing, if I'm being completely honest, is fixing the offensive line. Not for the Miami Dolphins, I'm just saying in general. I don't see many quarterbacks have success when they don't have a good offensive line. That's just the truth. And the Dolphins have had a really bad one. Now, at number 5, do you need to fix it? I don't necessarily think so. You still have some promise at the tackles. It's really on the internal of the inside the offensive line, the guard. The center actually hasn't, in my opinion, been like a drastic need for change. But the guards, especially, Jonas Savania has been an absolute bust. Like, he obviously has time to turn it around, but, definitely not playing at an NFL starter capable production. But got to solve that. Number 5, not worth it. So that's something to focus on round 2, round 3. Something that the Dolphins should also have, though, is firepower. Some people are talking about getting rid of Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill, probably not going to be back. And so you're definitely in a very tough situation where, in my opinion, you should go after Jordan Tyson and build your offense around a weapon in this early and then end up dropping a quarterback in because this class, unless a lot of guys decide to return to school, has a good amount of depth to where if you want to go after a Spencer Rattler type, where you're making a dart throw on early day 3, or you could go day 2 and just try to get somebody in that 3rd round, even though it's a low success rate, this class is oversaturated with that mid-tier of quarterback to where you don't have to force something high. So, going Caleb Downs, maybe won't be the move that I personally do, but at the same time, can you fault a team that has so many issues, especially on the defensive side, for going after the best player? And I can't. I mean, it's perfectly fair to go after Caleb Downs. It's just a lower value position with a lot of positions open and a team that is kind of notoriously looked at as more of an offensive team. which you could change the identity with Caleb Downs, or you can end up leaning into it with Jordan Tyson. Now, it's a great wide receiver class. You could probably do that round 2, round 3. So that's up to you. But at number 6, we have the Saints going Arvell Reese, a linebacker out of the Ohio State University. Intriguing one. I mean, he's definitely the most freaky player, and to me, it reminds me of when the Saints ended up drafting Zach Bond, who was a hybrid edge rusher slash linebacker when he came out of Wisconsin, and that's kind of what you want Arvell Reese to have a similar situation in, which is him being able to blitz, being able to have some reps on the line of scrimmage, and also being just the monster linebacker that he is. Now, of course, Bond didn't end up thriving until he went to Philadelphia, but I'm just saying, like, there is a vision for what the Saints have done in the past for what Arvell Reese could appeal to them. And it would end up working, obviously, in my opinion, a lot better. But I mean, he would end up being somebody who can end up rushing the passer, being on the line of scrimmage, as well as being right in the middle. And that flexibility is super crucial for a team that wants to continue having that defensive identity. So I'm excited to see how that would turn out. Maybe not the move I would go after if you end up moving a wide receiver. Once again, I do think that, we're going to talk about him in a second. Jordan Tyson is someone you can build an offense around, but we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. At number 7, the Giants go Jordan Tyson, wide receiver at Arizona State. This is a player that I have gone before and for the Giants, and I think it's a great move. Jordan Tyson to me is, very easily could be higher. He could be my number 1 player in the class. I think that his game just fits perfectly with what's being successful, especially from college to the NFL. Like, I love the transition. I think it'll be an early impact. And then with Malik Neighbors coming back from his ACL, this is a great way not to force Malik Neighbors to play, I was going to say Achilles, but obviously when we're talking about injuries, probably not the best type of name to reference, but trying to be Superman and, coming back from injury and instantly taking on a massive workload, which is bound to have some sort of negative ramification. Jordan Tyson could end up taking a lot of the stress and a lot of the focus off Malik to produce. And I love that. And I mean, if you want to keep Wandale for the long haul and you have Malik, you have Jordan Tyson, that's a trio that works together very fluidly, very well. So, at the same time, it also gives you the opportunity to not necessarily put Malik Neighbors into such a high volume position to where he also, with the less focus, can end up being more dangerous than he already is. So I love it. You end up allowing Jordan Tyson to also take some attention to himself, still produce, and then once again, open up opportunities for other people. So I'm a fan of it. I know some other people got their feathers ruffled by this. I saw it on Twitter. I think it's a great move. At number 8, the Cardinals go Spencer Fano, right tackle out of Utah. If he ends up getting here, I think this is an incredible move. I think this is exactly what you would pray for if you're a Cardinals fan. This or Arvell Reese, I don't really care which one. But Paris Johnson Jr. has been fantastic. I do worry about Spencer Fano's arm length, but at the same time, he is just such a gritty player. And he ended up, even after that Texas Tech game, still being worth this selection here. My number 9 player on my board, technically number 8, because once again, John Mateer will be slipping. Dylan Thieneman probably will as well. I need to drop him a little bit for his run defense grade based on his ass getting ran over by Roman Hemby in the red zone. But regardless, this is still a top 10 player for me for a team that absolutely should use him. I think he should be like top 3 or 4 on the Cardinals board. At number 9, we have the Vegas Raiders going LaNorris Sellers, quarterback out of South Carolina. He is Superman. The thing is, LaNorris does not process the game well. And this breaks my heart because you saw the mental progression over last year. Game over game, he gets better and better. And these bad habits, you're like, okay, you know what? This is someone who probably ran a shit ton in high school because he was legitimately Superman. And so he has some bad habits of running. He has a really strong arm. So when the windows are much wider, you can end up probably not needing to progress as much. I thought that would end up being a little bit better this year. And I saw a lot of growth. And in that Clemson game especially was the precipice of everything I thought LaNorris Sellers was. Arrogant with his arm, unbelievably talented as a runner, and just pretty much a game changer. And that's why he was my number 1 player coming into the year. But LaNorris, to me, especially that game versus Missouri, left a really bad taste in my mouth. And it was because there are things that are simplistic that college quarterbacks need to know how to do that he is not doing. When it is very obvious on, I believe it was a 3rd and 26, that it was going to be a zero blitz. Everybody's coming. Everybody else is manned up. And the coverage was off. He did not adjust the protection. He did not adjust for a hot route. He ended up standing there. The pressure came. There were more defenders than blockers. And rather than throwing, and there was still someone who was wide open, I posted about this, he ended up trying to scramble. And it was so obvious that it's just do the simple things right. And especially in the fourth quarter, he is so good at getting out of sacks. He does this patented little spin move. They picked up on that shit, dude, because it was the 5th time he tried that game. And in the fourth quarter, he just spun straight into a free rusher when he should have done a check down. The tight end was wide open, and he didn't do the check down. It might have been a running back. I don't understand why the little details of the game have gotten worse. I know the offensive line's not great. I know the scheme is not amazing. He has Nick Harbor, but the thing is LaNorris Sellers, Anthony Richardson? No. I think LaNorris has 1,000 times better mechanics, but these are just awful habits that need time and coaching and experience to get rid of. I don't think sitting on the bench is going to help. I don't think it would hurt, but I don't think it's going to get him to the best spot. I pray to God, and I now side with Todd McShay on this. I pray to God he stays one more year, and I hope he transfers to a team like Miami that is now pretty much resurrected Carson Beck and Cam Ward in back-to-back years. Because the potential of LaNorris to be the best player in all of college football is right before our eyes. He has the best physical talent out of anybody in the entire country. But the mental side of the game is the most important. If you ask anybody, if you were to have one trait, what would you value the most? Very few people will say physical traits. They'll say IQ. Know what the hell is going on. And that is what LaNorris doesn't have right now. And it breaks my heart. You guys know this. I've been fighting demons to get LaNorris Sellers back on track. And even though the defense completely outmatched the offense, LaNorris didn't do enough on his behalf in order to do the simple things to mitigate that damage. And that is why I'm terrified. And when you have Geno Smith as your mentor, who's having a very tough time here in Vegas, is an interesting idea. It's not the end of the world, but I'm worried that the bust factor would go from 50% up to 90% because it just doesn't seem like a conducive environment with a poor offensive line and someone who I don't trust as a mentor to put LaNorris in the best spot. That's why I think he should go back. If the Rams were somehow, like, God forbid, something happened where the Falcons end up tanking, let's just say a season-ending injury, God forbid, I'd be fine with him coming out and just sitting with McVay. Different story. This is not a quarterback guru. So there you go. There's my long spiel because I haven't been able to talk to you guys since I ended up having that reevaluation of him. And, I've been saying it also. I mean, on top of that, LaNorris throwing multiple intentional groundings in the same game. Just little shit that just really does not fly in the NFL. Number 10, the Bengals go Peter Woods, defensive interior out of Clemson. I don't know if they necessarily would be going after a defensive interior, but best player available is far from the worst possible outcome. They do have a lot of talent invested on the defensive front, 2nd round, 3rd round picks. But I mean, Peter Woods to me would be the best player available. I love Caleb Tiernan. I need to end up studying his game versus Penn State from this past week because he ended up allowing 3 pressures. I want to understand why, but I really love Caleb Tiernan. And Peter Woods, though, is the most logical option based on best player available. Texans go after CeCe Mauigoa, tackle/guard out of Miami. I know some people will put a Darnell Wright comp on Francis, and so I'm excited to be able to regrade him and, see, because week 1 was not pretty, in my opinion. I think Boubacar Traore ended up getting the best of him, but Outside of that, CeCe's been really reliable, and I want to end up seeing if maybe some of these issues that I thought would pertain to him needing to be a guard have smoothed out a little bit. At number 12, we have the Dallas Cowboys going David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Huge riser this year. Was super excited to see his growth at Stanford. Ends up going to Texas Tech and is even better. Fantastic. And somebody ended up calling this out. And I always love, I think the best part of what I do here is the fact I get to interact with y'all. Obviously, I get to talk about sports, but it's not really fun talking to a camera if nobody else really talks back. And so you guys responding in the comment section, I've responded to every comment since I think 2022. So I try my best to at least have some sort of interaction with y'all, with every single one of you. If you're going to invest your time and your energy, I feel like I should do the same for you. So I always say, be a dick. Don't be a dick about it. You guys called me out because I'm like, hey, Dallas Cowboys, for the most part, liking 260 plus edge rushers based on when you guys drafted them, like Sam Williams, I think was 265. Same thing with Marshawn Nealand. And you guys called out saying, hey, I believe Williams is down to 255. Houston's under the 260 mark. Ezraku was 247. Now, I think Ezraku is more so best player available, but at the same time, we're seeing a much greater success with those style of edge rushers for the Cowboys. Now, terrorist Matt Eberflus is, the one running the show. We'll see if that ends up continuing, but it does open the door for someone like David Bailey to end up being more of a long-term option of that similar style. I do worry about the run defense capabilities of David Bailey. I still think it's very solid. I think people over criticize it, but Donovan Ezraku is a little bit of a different style of edge rusher than David Bailey. We'll see if it ends up working out, but he's been fantastic. I think the Cowboys should probably invest defensive interior wise if they can, but obviously with Peter Woods off the board, you end up defaulting to position 2, which is most likely edge rusher. So I understand that, and you end up having a really nice duo there with Ezraku and Bailey with a good group of guys behind them, and maybe you can end up starting to change the narrative. At 13, you got the Carolina Panthers going Mansour Delane, cornerback at LSU. I honestly don't mind this because I love Mansour Delane. He was my corner 1 coming into the year. He is due for a reevaluation. That grade with him at 17 is from preseason, so he needs to get bumped up. Again, I only have grades on my board that are from my all-22 tape studies. I have my own opinions from watching with my eyes on TV, but I do like to be able to also dig in all 22, and that's what I base my grades on. So I can end up talking about Mansour Delane as someone who will probably be top 10 on my board without having him there for that reason. But Mansour Delane is fantastic. It's never a bad idea, especially with how expensive corners are getting, to be able to have 2 lockdown corners on your team. Now, I don't think that corner is the number 1 issue for the Panthers to solve, but if you see value there, it is not very easy to have a lockdown corner duo in the NFL. It's not. The passing game has made corners that are not great somewhat obsolete. You could kind of just, if you're a tier 3 corner, like tier 2 are the guys who can be 1s if they want to be. The tier 1s are obviously the guys who are like alphas and shit. If you are in that tier 3, there's not much value to you because a lot of guys can substitute in and give the same quality of play. And it's more so a dart throw at the board to see if you can actually handle yourself. Tier 4, in my opinion, like the guys who shouldn't be starting, those are the guys who probably should not be like on rosters. But besides that point, I think Mansour is someone who could dip into that tier 1 category. And if you have 2 tier 1s, that is a scary, scary sight, and not many teams get the flex to have that type of firepower. Maybe not my number 1 selection, but certainly one that I'd be perfectly fine with. The Chiefs go Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame at number 14. Perfectly reasonable selection. Sometimes I toss in Kenyon Sadiq because I like his blocking style, and I think even though he's disappeared from time to time, he is by far the most talented tight end in the country. And this is a team that likes to utilize their tight end, especially in space. But Jeremiah Love, 100% the number 1 back in the class, even though I'm a super huge fan of Damon Claiborne, which I know my guy here, Jordan Reid, is as well. The health concerns and the consistency have been a little bit more questionable than Jeremiah Love, who has both the star power as well as the production this year. It makes a lot of sense for a team in the Chiefs that are looking for their number 1 rusher. Hey, there you go. There's Kenyon Sadiq at number 15 to the Washington Commanders. I think tight end is a position that the Commanders have been trying to address somewhat because they spent a 2nd round pick a couple years ago on Ben Sinnott. I didn't like Ben Sinnott, and I'm honestly surprised. he's worse than I expected. It's very similar to Jonas Savania. I was not a fan of the trade up in that selection. He's been worse than I expected. Very similarly with Ben Sinnott, because I could have seen a path for him to be successful. He just hasn't been, which sucks. But Kenyon Sadiq, I think, is a fantastic pick for the Commanders. Someone who can provide vertical ability from the tight end spot that not many really can, and also has that after the catch ability and a very underrated blocking asset. So, I mean, huge win there for the Commanders. I'm glad to see that Jordan is not fully out on Kenyon Sadiq. At number 26, I don't know what the hell I'm saying, 26, 16, we had the Minnesota Vikings going Avion Trail, cornerback out of Clemson. There we go. Isaiah Rodgers. You guys know me. I always reference this. I think scheme matters so much for corners, whether they're going to be successful or not. It's so funny because the position I'm the most comfortable scouting and feeling comfortable putting my balls to the wall is corner. And I've had a pretty solid success rate so far. But the biggest thing for me is that I've never played that position. I've had experience learning all these other positions through my like tenure and 7 years playing. It's just like so funny that the one that I end up feeling my gut reaction and my analysis is the most accurate is the cornerback position. And with the Avion Terrell, he makes a lot of sense. He's a very good corner. For me, currently, he's number 27. There's guys like Chase Roberts who should be dropping, Lyndon Cooper. So top 25. And yeah, I have some guys in here like Kobe Baines who I really like, but I get to reevaluate him this week versus Texas Tech. That's a dominant defensive interior. So even though he let up 3 pressures, I think that's honestly something that you could end up excusing if it's for the right reason. But there's some guys in here, Damon Claiborne, Kobe Baines, 2 guys who I really believe in, Kyle Lewis as well. But regardless, Avion Terrell essentially is a top 25 player on my board. And in this situation where you get to see instantly the role he should be playing, and Isaiah Rodgers is a pretty damn solid comp for Avion Terrell. He might be even more physical as a run defender too. It just makes so much sense. Like it really does. So I like it. Sometimes I like to go Colton Hood to just change things up a little bit, but I perfectly understand and fully support Avion Terrell to the Vikings. At 17, the Chicago Bears go TJ Parker, edge rusher out of Clemson. My only feedback for this is because I love it. He's a great player, high potential, a team that definitely could use a high-end edge too. And it makes a lot of sense. I do know that Dennis Allen historically has gone for edge rushers who are 6'5 plus when you're drafting him, 6'5 plus, 260 plus. I don't know how much pull he's going to have because if Poles sees TJ Parker lurking here, I don't know if he could say no. If he can, then maybe we'll end up talking about that. But it's like the one thing I'll end up putting out there. I really do like TJ Parker. Like for me right now, TJ's at number 35 again with some guys who are bound to drop. He's right there in the top 32 for me. And again, I see him continuing to progress and get better and better and better. So I'm not really overly concerned with TJ Parker, being that low. For me, he's improved so much throughout from the last year to this year in terms of the mental side of the game. And that's where I really wanted to see him grow. He still needs to grow more. So I do want to see that improve. But, for me, I think TJ Parker will end up being in that top 25 zone, which makes it perfectly understandable. And even now, if he ends up at 35, 34, 33, this is an understandable and acceptable pick. 18, you got the Rams going Caleb Lamu, tackle out of Utah. I have Caleb Lamu as a guard at the moment. Where's he at on my board? Number 13 as a guard. As a tackle, he would have ended up, and yes, I know the colors are off. You guys know me. I'm still adjusting quite a few things, have a couple guys taken out, but he would end up being right here about 50. So, yes, you see what I think of a couple of the quarterbacks right there as well. Again, I'm not someone who's going to glaze the quarterback position. I do think there's a lot of risks inherently with all of these quarterbacks, and fit is going to be the biggest determinant as to whether I like them being selected at a certain spot or not. Because I think that's the most important out of all positions. But regardless, Caleb Lamu, he's a damn good player. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world if the Rams go after him. A top 50 player here in the top 20 is understandable. The problem with Lamu is some arm length, as well as the fact you're going to have to move him probably to right tackle. So, not a fan of that. But if you think the value's there, I understand. 19, the Bills go CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. I'm still not fully sold on CJ. I do really like the way he's been as a heavy enforcer in the run game. We'll see if he ends up continuing to improve to be a more well-rounded linebacker as time goes on to be worth that first round selection. I like the pick for the Bills. I prefer Sonny Styles, but again, I understand, especially based on how Jordan's talked about CJ Allen, where his mind is at with him. At 20, you got the Lions going to LT Overton, defensive lineman out of Alabama. I do. That's intriguing to call him a defensive tackle. So, I mean, I assume that they're going to talk about him pairing up on the inside as well as with some edge rush, which I know with Josh Pascal, that was kind of like the vision back in the day for him as a second round pick. With LT Overton, you have a similar positional flexibility with his size, and LT is a damn good player. I'm not going to shame it at all. So, 21, you got the Chargers going Amari Washington, defensive interior out of Oregon. To me, Amari is a little bit too inconsistent, but when he hits, he is like Christian Miller, ridiculous. I mean, he will end up literally mauling a guard into the quarterback. That's awesome. What I also love about Amari is that he will take reps from wide 9 and just bull rush a tackle and destroy the corner to the edge of a pocket. That's super fun. I could see him working with the right defensive mind. But I do see that he ends up having only 2 pressures in a game where he has one of those dominant reps, and you end up watching him, and the consistency is just not fully there. Now, if you get him with the right signal or right play caller, with the right developmental guys around him, I think he ends up improving that consistency. And again, we've seen the high-level play. We'll see if it gets more consistent. If it does, this is well worth the pick. I would just say there's a risk, as with every player, that the high-level play is going to pop up what the hell? It's going to be too scarce. All right. I can't think of words right now. It's not going to pop up often enough for you to justify this pick, but it very well could. So, definitely like that idea. And again, at 330 pounds, you can end up having a lot of size on the defensive interior and same program as Jamari Caldwell. So I like that as well. At number 22, you got the Patriots going Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Even though I end up wanting, a little bit more of a larger receiver like a Denzel Boston for the Patriots, I perfectly respect this move. It's a damn good player at pick 22. I mean, he is, in my opinion, a better wide receiver than Denzel Boston by a small margin. I mean, you guys, okay, at least you guys can see it. I really love them both, though. I mean, again, I just would prefer somebody to basically be what maybe some people thought Javon Baker should have been. Hate to rub some salt in the wound, but the Patriots, I do think, should be going after someone a little bit more of an X build and then allow a little more flexibility for Kayshon Boutte. If this is the move, it is far from something to complain about. At 23, we have the Denver Broncos going Sonny Styles. I like that move quite a bit. I think the Broncos should be looking at some linebacker talent, and Sonny Styles is perfect value there. At 24, you got the Rams going Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. I really do want Jermod to return. He's a true junior. We'll see. Again, this cornerback class at the top besides maybe 1 or 2 guys, which in my opinion, it's 3. It's Delane, it's Abney, and then it's Terrell. Some people will debate Abney for sure and substitute it with Jermod McCoy. There is going to be a group in there where Jermod can end up slipping in and being that late first. I think there's a little bit of a high risk that with not a full season of tape under his belt, that some teams will opt for someone like Colton Hood, his teammate, over him because of the fact that, you kind of have a little bit more familiarity. But I do think the Rams should be looking in that cornerback realm. I think Jermod McCoy should return to school, end up getting that money, get back to health, and put on a full display for his portfolio. But regardless, definitely like the idea of him having the identity of a Jalen Ramsey for the Rams. At number 25, the Cleveland Browns go Cardell Tate, wide receiver out of The Ohio State University. It's going to be hard to see him slip to this point with the hype on the Ohio State receivers and how quickly they've been translating. But the Browns, if they can somehow, some way make this work, I think are hitting an absolute home run. At 26, we have the Niners going Caden Proctor, tackle out of Alabama. I love the idea of him playing guard as well. Put him where Connor Colby is as he cross-trains with Trent Williams to be the left tackle of the future. I think this is a move that I've made, and it's a move that I'm going to continue supporting. Great move there for the Niners. At 27, the Philadelphia Eagles go Joshua Josephs, edge rusher out of Tennessee. My big thing with the Eagles right now is their edge core with Nolan Smith going to be coming back from injury. and then pretty much Jalix Hunt there is like the kind of primary edges. You need a lot more. You're backfilling the position. I think you guys are probably going to make a move for a veteran edge rusher if you guys are going to actually make a push, but you need more in that edge core. And Joshua Joseph is very similar to like Azeez Ojulari, brings like fantastic athleticism with really good measurables. Maybe not in the weight category, but Joshua Joseph has 34 and 3/4 inch arms. That's incredible. Like, that's ridiculous length. And he's also very enforceable against a run. JPJ last year, like, he was somebody who I really wanted for the Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't get that opportunity. James Pierce Jr. taken before, but Joshua Joseph's in a very similar mold. I don't think he's at the first round range yet because at 240, it's not like we're talking about 247, 248. Like, it is a little bit scary, and I don't think Joshua's on the level of JPJ, but I do really like the vision for the Eagles, maybe in round 2 going after Joshua Josephs. At number 28, they got the Seahawks going Anthony Hill Jr. It's very hard to think this many linebackers will end up going in the first. I do support the Seahawks investing in the linebacker core, and if you guys are sitting at number 28, there's probably going to be some slim pickings at the end of round 2. So if you guys are set on a linebacker, I'd maybe suggest moving back and ending up taking him, at least getting some type of extra value. But Anthony Hill Jr. and the Seahawks, I'm going to trust Mike McDonald if he gets a flexible player like this who has really good length, really flexible. Yeah, versatility, super key whenever you draft someone for Mike McDonald. I'm not going to question it, but I'm just not fully sold on Anthony Hill. Haven't been, never will be, probably. I mean, maybe I will. I'm not going to say that. It's arrogant to say I'll never will be, but I've seen a lot of Anthony Hill. It's hard for me to get fully on board with him based on what people believe. At 29, the Cowboys go Caleb Banks, defensive interior out of Florida. Ridiculous talent. Just hasn't been healthy. So I'm really hoping that he ends up getting back to health. Thing is, these guys, when they end up having re-aggravated injuries and requiring surgery, it's just there's going to be some big question marks and you're going to fall for health reasons. Now the question is, do you go from being top 15 to the end of the first, or do you do something like Will Johnson where there's some big medical red flags, he falls to that mid-second territory? And I think that the latter is a little bit more likely, especially in this defensive interior class. I think there are some options that are healthier, younger, and in my opinion, better that the Cowboys can end up utilizing or the rest of the NFL, to where Caleb Banks might be a little bit SOL. The one that we're looking at right now on my board at 11, Christian Miller, is going to be a little bit more up my alley. And there's a big gap, honestly, between 11 and 12/13. It's 1.5 points. It's the biggest gap from any of these players on the board. So there is like a notable gap between 11 and 12. Christian Miller is just flirting with that blue chip grade for me. At number 30, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers going Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama. I mean, I think we've seen with Aaron Rodgers that arm talent is a little bit more valuable. Like with Will Howard on the team, I think Ty Simpson and Will Howard schematically would probably perform a similar role and get similar outcomes, which is ballsy to say. I like Ty Simpson. Ty, I believe, is my quarterback 3 right now. And, I have him like lurking right there at 54 on my board. And yes, there's Carnell Tate who's getting boosted again. So do not ruffle your feathers over that. He's getting boosted every single week. But Ty Simpson, I think that it's a solid pick, but we're seeing the most success out of a type like Aaron Rodgers, where I'd rather take a shot on a John Mateer to be able to have Aaron Rodgers stay and mentor him, assuming John Mateer can get much closer to what he was versus Michigan than what he was versus Texas. That's a big asterisk. But if John Mateer can do that, then I think he's a better fit for the Steelers, because we're seeing a lot more success with an Aaron Rodgers type than necessarily a Ty Simpson or a Will Howard, which are going to be semi-mobile. Like, it's still mobile enough, but a little bit more the pocket passing type rather than more so the game, like the playmaker. Which, yes, Ty Simpson has some incredible throws, but something I do also want to note, 90 to 95% of his big time throws that we are like seeing every single time that there's a crazy, throw he makes, it's to the left side of the field. It seems like, and this is human biomechanics, it's a lot easier to throw like that than to throw like that, right? Like just you're recruiting less of your chest. There's a lot of factors that go into it for stability and strength. Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, you talk about these guys with freaky arm angles, Aaron Rodgers. It's not easy and it's not human to make those type of throws consistently on the side that you're not pretty much rotating into. They do. Ty Simpson doesn't. And I also think that his processing is a little bit slow. I'm giving you guys a little bit of a hint into what I think. Even in that play versus Vanderbilt, I believe it was versus Vanderbilt, where it might have been versus Georgia, but he ended up basically juking out a defender and then ripping it for the end zone, rolling to the right. The receiver was open for a solid second before that. And I don't know if that window is going to be open in the NFL. It's great that he saw it. I love that he saw it. But there are times where I'm saying this tight window doesn't need to be this tight because you should have recognized it earlier. And that's something that will come with experience. And I think he's done a fantastic job. But I do think when we're talking about glazing this guy as the number one pick, there needs to be a little bit of a holdback. But I still think at 30, if the Steelers ended up taking Ty Simpson, would I get mad? No. Based on his play right now, I think this is absolutely understandable. And, it's good value for him based on what the consensus is thinking. At 31, we got the Colts going Damon Wilson, the second edge rusher at Missouri. Dude, I don't know what they're doing in Georgia. It's the exact opposite of what Pitt's doing with their linebackers. Georgia has anti-aura juice for their edge rushing core. They're doing jack. And Damon Wilson was not good last year. Goes to Missouri and just turns it on. Really, really, really big improvement this year. Now, I would want to see, I'm forgetting what his build is off the top of my head, but he definitely, to me, needs to be in that 260 plus range where I'm looking at Zion Young. Zion Young ended up grading him today. Really fun edge rusher, built he's probably the best run defending edge in the entire draft. Hot take. But definitely a little bit more limited as a pass rusher. Damon Wilson kind of going to be a little bit more of the lightning and the thunder, but I'll end up regrading him and letting you guys know what I think. But I do think edge rusher is a very solid position to target for the Colts. And at 32, you got the Buccaneers going Cassius Howell, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. He has sub 31-inch arms. That's going to be the big red flag for him. But incredible first step, great athlete, multiple games with 3 sacks. With Cassius, I'm worried about how much he'd disappear because he is very ebb and flow. But when he is dominating, you're going to have to, as an NFL team, if Cassius is taking advantage of your tackle and he can't handle him with the speed and the technique, you're going to have to recruit multiple guys over there to have double teams and stuff. And so he is somebody where in the games where he is having success will require extensive attention that will take away and give opportunity towards other players to make plays. So definitely someone who can end up being a huge asset. Again, I'm just somebody that I'm trying to figure out how much I should value that arm length or value the issue with said arm length. We'll see what happens, but again, he's been performing fantastically. I think the Buccaneers should go after an edge rusher. If you think that arm length isn't that big of a deal, Cassius Howell is absolutely the guy for you. So that's going to be the video. Thank you again for watching, and shout out to Jordan Reid for being an A+ dude, showing that integrity is still a thing in this industry, but also on top of that, giving us some great content. We'll see you later. Peace.